Hey everyone, and welcome back to Joey's Retro Handhelds. I'm Joey, and today we're going to be fixing the R36S by improving the buttons and the D-pad to make them not as stiff. It was one of my main complaints with the R35S, and then Taki released a video which showed us how to do it, so thank you to him, and I'll leave a link in the description to his video. But I thought I would do a full teardown and just help you out in getting this actual mod done, just to make your life easier. Now keep in mind, this isn't going to be an easy mod for everybody. It's not exactly difficult, but it is a bit frustrating to keep things in the right place and just get everything done without having an actual breakdown because things aren't going your way. So just watch the video if it's something you're not sure that you could do. But I will say it kind of takes this handheld from just unplayable to a lot better. So in my mind, I think it's a necessity, but everybody might have a different opinion. So the first thing you need to do is on the back is just unscrew all 6 screws, and just don't forget that there's 6. I made the mistake on my end and completely forgot that there was an extra 2 and almost cracked the case, but there's 6 screws on the back and I used a 00 hex to just get that out. So just go ahead and unscrew all 6. Once you unscrew all 6, the back should just pop right off, but it is still connected through the battery. So just be careful, don't rip it off or you might break something. So the next thing obviously that we're going to have to do is just disconnect the battery. And you don't want to pull it by the wire, you want to try and grab it by the head that's connected. So just be careful, it might take you a few attempts just to get in there. If you have longer nails, it might help you. For me, it took a few attempts to just kind of get that thing out of there. Once you disconnect the battery, we have access to pretty much the entire main board here, but we're going to have to unscrew a few other things. First thing we want to do is unscrew the 2 screws that are connecting the board to the shell. So you can see them there in the middle, and we're just going to unscrew both. Next up, we want to disconnect the speaker. So same thing like the battery, just try and grab it by the head and pull it out of the connector. Now we're going to move on to the joysticks, and there's 2 screws on each joystick and then the actual ribbon cable to disconnect it from the board. So just unscrew the screws, don't pop it out yet, unclasp the actual ribbon cable, so make sure you lift the black part, and then you can just pop the ribbon cable right out and the actual joystick will come with it. Do the same thing with the other joystick. Again, remember, don't pull the actual ribbon out without lifting the little black clasp, or you might just break the ribbon. Next up, we want to disconnect the actual display ribbon. So again, lift the clasp and then unclick the ribbon from it, and it should pop right out. With all of that disconnected, you should be able to just pry the board right out. You could use a little spudger if you wanted to, or I have a little, I forget what it's called, but it lifts it out for me. Anything you want, it should just pop right out after. Now that we have access to the buttons, what you want to do is grab a pair and then just snip the thing and it'll fly across the room. And then just make another cut as well so that they're not exactly just cut right in the middle. You leave a little bit of a gap. Then just put the buttons back in the right spot, and you might want to lift the actual handheld up a little bit for this. Because if you keep it face down, the buttons are going to pop out because they're all on the other end of the screen, but they do only go in one way. So that same curve will pop into the way that it was before. There's a little slot for it. And of course, do the same thing with the other buttons as well. And now comes the fun part. First thing you want to do is put the membrane back on both sides. There's little poles that they attach to make it a little bit easier for you to do. And like I said, I didn't do it here, but you want to lift the handheld up a little bit. So put it to rest on something with the screen, at least most of the screen, to make your life easier, or else it's just going to be difficult for you. You want to get the membranes back on in the right spot, and then the actual power buttons and volume buttons as well on the left and right side. Those are going to be a bit of a nuisance because they keep popping out. And while you try and put the board back in, they're going to just be annoying. And you'll see in a second what I mean, but it gets frustrating. So just maybe take your time, figure out a good way to do this, because what you want to do is feed the actual speaker cable through the speaker hole, and then the ribbon for the display, and then try and connect the board without the top left and right falling apart. Once you finally get the board back on and the speaker cutout is fine and the display ribbon is fine and both of your side buttons are fine, next thing we can do is screw in the 2 screws that we removed. And these you can adjust to change how the D-pad feels. So if you screw in really tight, the D-pad will be a bit tighter than you'd want. So I would suggest just playing around with the screws and just seeing how loose you want to make them to make the D-pad feel a little bit better, without going too loose, because then everything's just going to fall apart. Then, of course, we're just going to connect everything back together. So you can connect the speaker, you can connect the display ribbon, put the joysticks back in, and then feed the actual ribbon cable through and then clasp it afterwards. So make sure the clasps are all open for the display ribbon as well as the joysticks before you feed them through. One thing I didn't show here is I actually made the speaker cable go into the grooves around the speaker. So you can kind of feed it in there just to get it out of the way for when you close the actual case. But that'll be completely up to you. It is not that difficult to do, so I would suggest just doing it. Then, once all that's done, just boot up your actual console and start playing some games, and you'll probably notice a difference right away. The buttons feel a lot better than they did on stock. It's a night and day difference to me personally. So this helps a lot to make this an actually playable handheld, where before, again, for me, it wasn't something that I would enjoy. And that was kind of it for this one. Just wanted to show a full teardown as well as how to do the button mods. And again, thanks to Taki for pointing this out. Hopefully this helps you out. Don't forget to like and sub to help the channel grow, and hope you all have a good one.